This is CBN Newswatch.
It is Thursday, July 17th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to begin this half hour with valuable private information about a possible vaccine for COVID-19 at risk. The U.S., United Kingdom, and Canada believe the Russians are trying to steal it. Our George Thomas is on this story.
In a joint communication, those governments allege that a hacking group known as Cozy Bear is attacking academic and pharmaceutical companies involved in developing a coronavirus vaccine.
I think that's pretty appalling. To have the Russian government engaged in that endeavour, I think needs calling out.
According to a 16-page document released by Britain's National Cybersecurity Centre, the Russians are targeting several global organizations with hacking programs called WellMess and WellMail.
One of the things that the report stated was that a lot of this information came from phishing attacks. That is, sending emails and getting people to send personal information that then hackers could use to get in. And so, as ever with these things, the weak link in the security isn't so much the computers, it's the people.
The hacking group Cozy Bear is familiar to U.S. intelligence. Washington identified them as one of two Russian government-linked groups that broke into the DNC's computer network, stealing emails and other documents ahead of the 2016 presidential election.
The biggest takeaway from these attacks is that other countries are actively targeting the health research industry, and we're seeing the pharmaceutical companies and others being targeted because they have the information that can be used to help alleviate this global pandemic.
In April, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security warned that various cyber criminal groups around the world, including in Russia and China, were targeting COVID-19 research.
Russia not only can derive benefit economically by speeding up their own development of a vaccine, but they can also disrupt our efforts to develop a vaccine.
On Thursday, the White House said the U.S., UK, and Canada are working to stop Russia's nefarious actions.
We worked very closely with our allies to ensure that we would take measures to keep that information safe, and we continue to do so, and we're aware of those activities.
The report doesn't specify whether Russia's president knew about the hacking job. The Kremlin has rejected the allegations. George Thomas, CBN News.
I want to turn now to the Middle East and our continuing coverage of the pandemic. In the early days of the pandemic, the nation of Israel was hailed as a model in fighting COVID-19. But now a second wave is causing havoc, including record high unemployment and protests in the street. Chris Michels explains more now from Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem Tuesday night, several thousand demonstrators both rioted and protested the government's handling of the COVID-19 crisis. Just days ago, thousands of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv to protest the government's lack of support for Israelis out of work.
We are not working already nearly 5 months, and unfortunately most of us have not received any compensations from the Israeli government. And this is really a tragedy. That's why now you can feed your family and pay your employees after 5 months with zero income.
In an attempt to stop the economic bleeding, Prime Minister Netanyahu promised relief.
I directed the immediate establishment of a joint forum, roundtables, together with the self-employed and with the business owners, so that we can resolve the problems.
The economic problems are daunting. Israel is experiencing an unemployment rate of more than 20%, and one of its main industries, tourism, is among the hardest hit. You can see the evidence driving around Jerusalem, where dozens of tourist buses sit parked. Hotels remain closed, and many tourist shops are shuttered. So how did Israelis go from a shining example of handling COVID-19 in April to today? Some believe it's simply because Israelis didn't follow the 3 requirements for reopening: wearing face masks, maintaining social distance, and personal hygiene. Since then, daily cases have risen from just double digits to more than 1,000. Tuesday saw a record of more than 1,700 new cases. The crisis has led to a shortage of the drug remdesivir and a threat of a nationwide strike by the nurses' union, who say they're overworked. One Israeli official said the country is one step from a full lockdown, while some hard-hit areas have been quarantined.
We respect those decisions because for us, a life is a life, and it's not just another number, and we want to make sure that everybody's safe at home.
The government also sent mixed messages. For example, when the Knesset overruled the cabinet for its closures on pools and gyms. All this has led to a dramatic fall in the polls for Netanyahu. In April, 30% of Israelis were unhappy with his handling of the crisis. Now that poll has doubled to 61%. Meanwhile, on an optimistic note, United Airlines announced it will open a new route from Chicago to Tel Aviv starting this September.
And Chris Michels here now with more. So, Chris, what is the latest decision by the government to stop COVID-19?
Well, Ephraim, it really is a crisis right now here, and the government is going by day. Sometimes you have to watch almost during the day exactly what the government is doing. Right now, they are closing gyms. For restaurants, you can only have takeaway. It's not a total lockdown yet, but they are promising it could be. This weekend or after this weekend, beaches will be closed. Malls, open-air markets, barbershops are closed right now. And as of 5 o'clock tonight, that's why I got a haircut earlier today, Ephraim. Now, no gatherings more than 10 people. That means our local congregation, there's only the worship team that's going to be there. And as Netanyahu said, we are one step away from a full lockdown. The labs are struggling to keep up. And as we reported there in our story, the tourism is really hard hit. And I would say, from a personal point of view, right now that a lot of people are discouraged. I talked to a restaurant owner not long ago. She thinks she might actually lose 2 or 3 of her 4 restaurants. Very discouraging time here in Israel right now.
Heartbreaking to hear. What dangers does this pose for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, as we reported there in the story, a dramatic drop in the polls. You know, a few months ago, everybody was hailing him for handling the COVID crisis. Right now, those polls have gone up double. Israelis are unhappy. Just a few blocks from here, Ephraim, I just rode by a demonstration outside the Prime Minister's residence. And the protesters are not just against Netanyahu. They're really against what's happening in the country and the way the government has handled this. There's also internal division within the government between the Blue and White Party, Benny Gantz's coalition, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And all this is going on in the midst of trying to implement annexation, which in and of itself is a huge major foreign policy decision. Many of the countries in the region are against that. The U.S. White House is kind of ambivalent right now. So very, very tough time here for Prime Minister Netanyahu and for Israel.
Chris, can you tell us about this amendment by U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen and how this could endanger Israel?
Well, it's a quietly introduced amendment right now to the Defense Act. What it would do, Ephraim, was prevent U.S. defense spending or U.S. defense systems like the Iron Dome utilized or deployed into the West Bank if that land is annexed. I mean, the Iron Dome would probably be the main one. That would mean that Israel wouldn't be able to defend itself against people like Hezbollah or Hamas that can shoot rockets into the West Bank. This is the land that may be annexed. Many people think it's a short-sighted amendment that would really tie Israel's hands at a very critical time. One commentator that we talked to said it really ignores Middle East reality right now and what's happening on the ground. It also represents an ideological shift in the United States that's going on culturally, reflected there by this amendment in the U.S. Senate.
Looking ahead to Jerusalem Dateline, can you tell us what's in store?
Yeah, we have an update on the Hagia Sophia. This is the at one time Christendom's largest church in Istanbul. President Erdogan is now converting that into a mosque. It really does have regional implications. We also have a report from inside the Iranian church. There's been arrests of many Iranian believers just recently. It's a very serious development. We'll have that on as well. Also, new research at Hebrew University, and these researchers say they may be able to find a drug that's already been in use and already FDA approved to make COVID-19 as dangerous as the common cold. We all hope that's going to be possible. They'll have clinical trials pretty soon. And finally, Ephraim, we have a segment on Pat Robertson and Israel. You know, he's coming out with this new book about I Have Walked with the Living God. And he talks with Scott Rouse specifically about his relationship with the Jewish people and the state of Israel. All this coming up on this week's Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you so much, Chris. And of course, you can see Jerusalem Dateline this evening at 9:30 Eastern. You can find that on the CBN News Channel. The security failure that let hackers take over the Twitter accounts of high-profile users could have long-term impact. The fake messages urged people to send money to a Bitcoin address. Twitter quickly deleted the tweets, shut down the accounts, and began an investigation. The company also said it has taken steps to limit access to internal systems and tools. Still, Twitter has to deal with a public trust issue. Michael Gazzelli of the cybersecurity company NetworkBox warning the public if you receive a tweet from a verified account belonging to a well-known and therefore trusted person, you can no longer assume it's really from them. A professor faces a lawsuit for teaching that Islam is not a peaceful religion. Campus reform protests the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, is bringing the suit. It's against Professor Nicholas Damask and a Scottsdale Community College in Arizona. One of Damask's students is Muslim and says he was shocked and offended by what the professor taught. The Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, is defending Damask, and FIRE's Caitlin Spatton says colleges can't take away a professor's academic freedom rights because they want to stem criticism on social media. I want to let you know you can find the full story at cbnnews.com, including more on the case and CAIR's reported ties to terrorism. Coming up, as Christians return to worship at church, some are still defending their religious freedoms and rights in states where they believe there's a double standard. We've got that story and more. Stay with us.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m.
Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Churches are beginning to reopen for worship, but in some states, Christians believe there is a double standard. I'm Mark Martin, talk with conservative radio host Todd Starnes about some of the latest cases across the nation and why religious liberty may be at risk.
Todd, there's a story on your website about large groups of people allowed to gather at casinos in Nevada, but not in churches. What's that all about?
Yeah, this is a head scratcher, but not all that surprising, as we have seen through this China virus crisis, where religious liberty has been curtailed on the state level. And that's been the case in the state of Nevada, where the government came in and said, you know what, if you are a church, you are not allowed to have a full crowd inside your building. You can only have a certain number of people inside that building. At the same time, the state of Nevada reopened the casinos in Vegas and Reno, and they said you can have as many people as you want coming to the casino. So that has a lot of pastors really upset here, and rightfully so. If you're going to have 200 people inside a casino, why can you not have 200 people inside the church house? And there's clearly a double standard here. And that's why Calvary Chapel has asked for legal counsel and legal guidance here on how to deal with this.
Where else are we seeing this sort of double standard against churches?
Yeah, well, look, California is the big hot spot here, and this case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled against churches. The Supreme Court decided that Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, did have the authority to limit the number of people who could attend churches, or quite frankly, could even shut down the church houses as a matter of public safety. Now, here's the problem that we're facing, and we talked about this on my radio show with Kelly Shackelford from First Liberty Institute. Unfortunately, there are other religious liberty law firms that are going out there, and they are filing lawsuits that are faulty lawsuits. And one of those lawsuits made it all the way to the Supreme Court, and hence you got the ruling against the church houses. So the issue here is for these religious liberty law firms to make sure they are picking the right cases that they can win if in fact it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. It's a tough situation right now for Christians across this country.
You also have in your story, actually have a story on your website about a Christian singing group, actually a family being censored on social media. What happened there?
Yeah, these folks actually happen to be dear friends of mine. The Milan Hayes family, they're one of the top gospel singing groups in Southern gospel music, and they had put a beautiful rendition of the national anthem on their Facebook fan page. And immediately after they did that, they were locked out of their account by Facebook, and no matter what they tried to do, they were not able to get back into their account. I spoke to the Hayes family, and they tell me they believe that they were locked out of their account because they performed the Star Spangled Banner on their Facebook page.
Wow. How real is the threat to religious freedom in all of this? Break it down for us.
Well, I think there is a clear and present danger to religious liberty in the United States of America. And I think we have to be very careful. We have to be very wise in how we approach this. And it's not all that surprising. I've written 3 or 4 books on this very issue of religious liberty under attack. Here's the big problem. The casinos in Vegas, they have lobbyists. Those lobbyists are able to work with lawmakers to get what they want. But by and large, the Christians do not have lobbyists. So in many cases, they do not have a voice in the State House. And that's why it's so important for Christians to engage the political process and to make sure they're reaching out to their elected leaders. If we do not do that, we will not have a voice. And unfortunately, when push comes to shove, they're going to kick the Christians to the curb.
Yeah. Any other advice for Christians and church leaders when it comes to responding to what's happening in this day and time?
So look, by and large, I think every major church in America has followed the protocol set forth by the CDC and the government, the social distancing guidelines, the hand sanitizer, the face masks. Churches are doing what they need to do to make sure that church members are protected in the church house. And I think that's an important thing. But the reality is, for example, back in California, they actually told churches they're not allowed to sing anymore. I mean, what right does the governor have to tell churches what they can and cannot do in their worship service? And I interviewed the pastor of one mega church, Dr. Paul Chappell, Lancaster Baptist Church. He said that God decides how they worship, not Sacramento.
All right, Todd Starnes, thanks so much for your information and keeping us updated on all of this.
Thanks, Mark.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today.
Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Welcome back. It is time for sports, and sports director Sean Brown joins us now. So there's a lot going on right now with the Washington Redskins. But first, let's talk about the latest sexual harassment within Pro Football Organization.
Yes, good morning. According to the Washington Post, 15 women have come forward and said that they were sexually harassed when they were employed by the team over the last decade. The article details several allegations of sexual harassment, abusive behavior, and misconduct by a lot of the team's executives and football personnel. And so longtime play-by-play announcer Larry Michael, Alex Santos, director of player personnel, and Richard Mann II, assistant director of player personnel, all 3 men implicated. Michael retired, but the other 2, Alex and Richard Mann, were fired recently. And so this goes way back, 2013. There were reports that one of the teams, the director of business operations, was forcing cheerleaders to serve as escorts to a lot of the team's sponsors. And so this just goes deep, man. It's very, very sickening. And as we go throughout the day and the weekend, I'm sure more stories will come out with details.
Is it clear if leadership was part of the problem as well, or knew about it and condoned it?
Well, so far, there have been no implications as to Dan Snyder's involvement. There have been no implications. He hasn't been implicated in any way. But all things rise and fall on leadership. I believe that, obviously these were a lot of executives talk. So we don't know how much Dan Snyder knew about what was going on. But as time goes on, I'm sure we're going to find out exactly, who was involved. Already, people are already calling for Dan Snyder to sell his shares. You may remember that 2 of the owners of the team were trying to sell their shares. And so as this unravels, we're going to receive more news about who's going to own the team, whether he's going to stay or not. And so just have to wait and see.
And on top of all of that, I want to talk about the name change real quick. What is the latest on that?
Well, right now, before all this dropped, it was all about the name change because of the racism within the name, the term the Redskins. And were forced, not willingly, but they were forced. Dan Snyder was forced to change the name. Right now, we've got the Warriors, Red Wolves, and several other names being considered. And so we just have to wait and see which way they're going to go in terms of the name. But the name will be changed, and it should be.
What kind of reaction is there to the name change? We've heard reports of some Native Americans saying they weren't offended by the name.
Yeah, what's interesting is that some, the team, the family that actually designed the logo and kind of help with the name, they said that they're not offended by the name, but you have groups like the Navajo Nation who said, yes, the name is offensive and it should be changed. As far as I can tell, if anyone's offended, then the name should be changed. But right now, based off what I've seen, it's kind of been split, mixed reactions to the name amongst the Native Americans and just fans in general. So we just have to wait and see. They're going to change it, though.
Indeed, they are. Sean Brown, thank you so much for your time. As always, appreciate it. Coming up, a big brother's love for a little sister and the instinct to protect her causes him to do something very brave. Stay with us.
Rising energy costs are...
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
No super balls, man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. A little boy is a hero in his family's eyes and in the eyes of all who are hearing this story for saving his little sister from being attacked by a dog. His aunt told the story on social media. She says 6-year-old Bridger saw the dog coming at his sister and stepped between her and the charging dog. He took the vicious blows by the dog that would have attacked his younger sister. He had to get 90 stitches in all, but he's recovering from that attack. And when asked why he acted the way he did, he said, if someone was going to die, I thought it should be me. His aunt is keeping everyone updated and says his wounds are looking better. He is in great spirits and his awesome personality is intact. She's also tagged a few celebrities who play some of his favorite superheroes, hoping that at least one of them will give Bridger a shout out. Let's hope for that. Loved that, Bridger. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and I'd like to leave you with this thought. God wants your time and he wants your attention. Give him both, and he will then make room for everything else you need. Seek him first. With that word, I encourage you to make today a fabulous Friday and be sure to have a wonderful weekend. That will do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Thank you so much for watching. I want to remind you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at the address right there on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for watching. We'll see you right back here, same time Monday.